The screams weren't from drowning. They were the sound of pure, soul-crushing realization. Karen and her HOA minions erupted from my pool like radioactive smurfs, their skin, hair, and designer swimsuits blazing electric blue under the patio lights while the entire neighborhood watched with phones raised. I stood on my deck, arms crossed, sipping coffee like it was just another Tuesday. Karen Voss, president of our precious Whispering Pines Homeowners Association, clutched her wine glass like a life raft, staring at her glowing blue palms as if they'd personally betrayed her. What is this?" she shrieked, her voice cracking like cheap HOA drywall. Her little entourage, 3 board members and their board spouses, slipped and slid across the deck, leaving glowing blue footprints that looked like crime scene evidence from a bad sci-fi movie. Phones flashed. Neighbors leaned over fences. Someone actually started clapping slowly, like this was the season finale everyone had been waiting for. My name is Ryan Bennett, and that pool behind me isn't just a hole full of water. It's blood, sweat, memories, and one very clear message: mine. My grandfather built it with his own 2 hands back in 1987 when this neighborhood was still half cornfield. No contractors, no permits from some future busybody board. Just a man who wanted his family to have something that couldn't be voted away. He poured the concrete on weekends, hauled every stone in his old pickup, and when he was done he carved our initials into the coping with a pocket knife. "This stays in the family, Ryan," he told me the day I turned 10, water dripping from his mustache. "No one gets to tell you how to use what's yours." Fast forward 30-plus years and Whispering Pines had grown into the kind of cookie-cutter suburb where everyone smiled at the mailbox but secretly measured your grass with a ruler. The HOA started innocent enough, fixing streetlights, collecting dues for common areas. Then Karen moved in. Within 6 months she was president, strutting around in pastel blazers like she was running for Congress, clipboard permanently glued to her hand. She had that fake sweet voice people use right before they stab you in the back. "We're all family here," she'd coo at block parties, while quietly adding new rules about mailbox color and holiday light wattage. The first time she set her sights on my pool it was over the back fence, all sugar and smiles. "Ryan, darling, have you ever considered making this a community amenity? Think of the property values. The children." I smiled politely, the same way you smile at a raccoon that's trying to open your trash. "It's private, Karen. Always has been." Her eyes narrowed for half a second before the mask snapped back. "We'll see." That's when the paper war began. First came the courtesy notice claiming my pool needed a safety inspection under community standards. Never mind that the plat map showed my property line stopped the HOA dead at the sidewalk. Karen's version of reality didn't include pesky things like deeds. I filed it away. Then the dues invoice arrived. $3,000 for shared recreational facilities. I laughed so hard my coffee went up my nose. My grandfather had never paid a dime to the HOA because we weren't part of it. Karen knew that. She just didn't care. Whispers started at the mailbox. "He's refusing to contribute. Selfish. Thinks he's better than the rest of us." I caught Mrs. Alvarez from 2 doors down crossing the street when she saw me coming. People I'd barbecued with for years suddenly remembered urgent errands. Karen's poison spread like cheap lawn fertilizer. Effective, toxic, and impossible to wash off once it touched you. I didn't yell. I didn't call her out in the group chat. I did what any man protecting his grandfather's legacy would do. I prepared. Every letter went into a binder. Every whispered rumor I overheard got dated and timed. I installed cameras along the entire fence line, motion lights that could light up a football field, and my favorite touch, a completely harmless chemical dye dissolved into the pool chemistry. Invisible in normal light. Activated by skin contact and the exact pH of human sweat. It would glow electric blue for 48 hours straight. Enough time for everyone to see exactly who didn't respect boundaries. Karen's next move came on a Saturday morning when I was grilling. She showed up with 2 guys in reflective vests carrying clipboards and tape measures. "Morning, Ryan. These gentlemen are here for the mandatory safety assessment. Community liability, you understand." Her smile was so fake it could have been printed on a campaign sign. I set my tongs down slowly. Show me the bylaw that says my private backyard is community property. One of the guys shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, we might be in the wrong. Karen cut him off with a glare sharp enough to slice rebar. The board has spoken. I opened the gate just enough to hand them a photocopy of the original plat map, highlighted in yellow. Read it and weep. Now get off my grass before I call the actual police. They left. Karen stayed long enough to hiss, "You'll regret this," then click-clacked away in her heels like a villain in a soap opera. That night I added another tab to the binder. Trespass Attempt 1. The stack was getting satisfyingly thick. Karen thought she was wearing me down. She had no idea she was just handing me bricks for the wall that would eventually bury her. The harassment kept coming. Weekly envelopes claiming mosquito breeding grounds, structural hazards, even aesthetic violations, because my lounge chairs were apparently the wrong shade of teal. Neighbors stopped waving. My mailbox filled with passive-aggressive notes. One Sunday I overheard Karen at the community bulletin board telling a new family, "We tried to be nice, but some people just refused to be team players." I almost applauded the performance. Oscar-worthy entitlement. I kept my mouth shut and kept stacking evidence. Cameras caught her peering over the fence with binoculars twice. Motion lights lit her up like a criminal on a stakeout. Each incident logged. Each lie documented. The binder was now 2 volumes and I was starting to enjoy the weight of it in my hands. Patience isn't just a virtue. It's a loaded weapon when the other side thinks you're weak. By late summer, Karen's campaign had gone nuclear. She filed complaints with the county health department claiming unsafe chemical storage. The inspector showed up, took one look at my perfectly labeled locked cabinets and shook his head. "Off the record, buddy. You've got a real piece of work next door." He left with a smile and 0 citations. Karen's face when I waved the clean report over the fence was priceless, tight-lipped, eyes twitching, the mask slipping just enough to show the rage underneath. That's when I knew she was desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. And I was ready with the perfect spotlight to catch every single one. The staged inspections turned into full-blown comedy. Twice I caught her with her little entourage measuring the distance from my pool fence to the property line like they were planning a heist. Once she brought a tape measure and actually tried to argue the overhang of my patio umbrella counted as encroachment. I stood there sipping iced tea while she sputtered, "This affects property values for everyone." I replied calmly, "Funny how your property value obsession never includes respecting deeds." She stormed off muttering about entitled loners. The neighborhood isolation hurt more than the fines. People who'd brought their kids over for summer swims now looked away when I waved. The block party I usually hosted got rescheduled without telling me. Karen's poison had worked. People were scared of being labeled rule breakers by association. I watched from my window one evening as she held court at the mailbox, clipboard in hand, probably explaining how my refusal to surrender my pool was single-handedly crashing the real estate market. Black humor at its finest. A woman who violated every privacy rule in existence lecturing about community standards. I upgraded the cameras to 4K with night vision. I calibrated the motion lights to blind anyone within 20 feet. And I tested the dye system one last time. Dropped a cotton ball in a sample bucket and watched it bloom neon blue on contact. Perfect. Harmless. Undeniable. Karen wanted my pool so badly she'd risk everything. I was going to give her exactly what she asked for: public access in full color. The final escalation came in a thick manila envelope stamped, "Final Notice, Legal Department." Inside were 4 pages of pseudo-legal gibberish threatening injunctions and liens unless I granted immediate community access rights. Karen had even forged a county seal on one page, sloppy work but bold. I added it to the binder under fraudulent documents and forwarded copies to my lawyer, an old military buddy who laughed so hard he had to catch his breath. "This woman is writing her own indictment," he said. "Keep feeding her rope." Then the emergency calls started. Fire department showed up one afternoon claiming electrical hazard at the pool pump. Karen's anonymous tip. They left 20 minutes later shaking their heads and muttering about nuisance complaints. Animal control came next week for loose pets creating drowning hazards. I don't own pets. The officer left apologizing and took a photo of my pristine yard for his own amusement. Each visit got photographed, timed, and filed. My binder now weighed enough to use as a weapon. The social toll was real. My kids stopped asking for friends to come over because the parents said no. My wife started taking longer routes to avoid the judgmental stares at the grocery store. Karen had turned our quiet corner of suburbia into a surveillance state run by one woman with too much time and too little self-awareness. Every time I sat by the pool at night watching the water reflect the stars, I remembered my grandfather's words. Some things are worth fighting for, son. Not because they're big, but because they're yours. I didn't fight dirty. I fought smart. And the trap was set. By September, the pressure was suffocating. Karen's whispers had turned into open campaign speeches at HOA meetings. I overheard board members muttering that the pool would make a perfect venue for community events. Translation: Karen wanted to host her book club and wine nights on my dime, while pretending it was for the children. The arrogance was almost admirable in its purity. One night the cameras caught her at the gate after midnight with 2 board members. They rattled the lock, whispering about testing access for emergency purposes. I watched the footage 3 times, smiling into my beer. Her voice came through crystal clear on the mic. He can't keep us out forever. That pool belongs to all of us now. I saved the clip and labeled the file Exhibit A Criminal Intent. The binder was complete. The die was armed. The lawyer had digital backups. All that was left was for Karen to make the mistake I knew she couldn't resist. It happened on a warm Friday night when most of the neighborhood was at the high school football game. I was in my home office reviewing footage when the motion sensors lit up the backyard like daylight. Karen, 3 board members, and their spouses, wine bottles in hand, were picking the gate lock with what looked like a coat hanger. Professional. Classy. They actually giggled as they slipped inside like teenagers breaking curfew. "See," Karen announced triumphantly, voice carrying straight into my microphones. "No harm, no foul. We're just borrowing what's ours for one little celebration. For the property values." They stripped down to swimsuits, splashed in, toasted with plastic cups. "To community," someone cheered. I waited exactly 30 seconds, the time it took for the die to activate, then stepped onto the patio and hit the floodlights. The screams that followed were better than any symphony. Karen came up first, neon blue from head to toe, mascara running in electric rivers down her cheeks. She looked like a smurf that had lost a fight with a highlighter factory. "What did you do?" she howled, clawing at her glowing arms. Her friends followed, slipping on the deck, leaving glowing blue handprints everywhere. Phones started lighting up at neighboring fences. Someone yelled, "Holy crap, it's glowing." Laughter rippled through the growing crowd. Pure, delicious schadenfreude. Karen spun toward me, blue teeth bared. "You poisoned us. That's assault. I'm calling the police right now." I held up my phone, already dialing. "Be my guest. While you're at it, explain to them why you're trespassing on private property at 11 p.m. with a bottle of Merlot." Sirens cut through the night 5 minutes later. The patrol car pulled up just as Karen was trying to wrap herself in a towel that immediately turned blue from contact. The sergeant stepped out, took one look at the glowing blue circus in my backyard, and had to bite his lip to keep from laughing. "Ma'am, you want to explain what's happening here?" Karen launched into full performance mode, voice shrill. "Officer, this man booby-trapped his pool. He poisoned us. We're the HOA board enforcing community standards and he..." I handed the sergeant my binder and phone with the footage already queued. "Officer, this property predates the HOA by 18 years. Here's the deed, plat map, and original permit. Those people broke in after picking my lock." "The blue? Just a harmless dye that activates on skin contact. Perfectly legal trespasser marker. Cameras caught everything." The sergeant flipped through the pages, eyebrows climbing higher with each tab. Bogus fines. Fake complaints. Midnight lockpicking. His partner was already taking statements from the neighbors who'd gathered like it was Black Friday. One guy actually yelled, "We've been waiting for this." Karen's face, still glowing like a smurf on steroids, twisted in fury. "This is ridiculous. That pool raises everyone's property values. We're entitled." The sergeant closed the binder with a thud. "Ma'am, Entitlement isn't ownership. From what I see here, you've been harassing this man for months. And right now you're trespassing. I'd suggest you leave before I start reading rights. But Karen couldn't stop. She rattled the gate, blue spittle flying. I'll burn this whole neighborhood down before I let him win. You hear me? I'll ruin every single one of you. The entire block went dead silent except for the click of phone cameras. The sergeant's hand moved to his radio. That's a criminal threat in front of law enforcement and 20 witnesses. You're under arrest. Handcuffs clicked around glowing blue wrists. Karen's board members scattered like cockroaches when the lights come on. One actually tried to hide behind a lounge chair and left a perfect blue silhouette when he ran. The crowd erupted in applause, real applause, the kind that comes when the bully finally gets what she deserves. The next morning the cul-de-sac felt lighter. Neighbors who'd avoided me for months brought coffee and apologies. We were scared of her, one dad admitted. You showed us we didn't have to be. My lawyer filed everything by noon. Harassment, trespass, false reports, criminal threats. Karen's house went up for sale 2 weeks later. The HOA board issued a groveling email apologizing and removing her permanently. They even rewrote the bylaws to include actual respect for property lines. I sat by the pool that first quiet evening, the water calm and clear again, and placed a small bronze plaque by the fence. Bennett Family Pool 1987. Built with love, protected with patience. The kids splashed. Neighbors waved. Life felt like mine again. Karen's blue skin took 3 weeks to fade completely. Rumor has it she tried every scrub and bleach the internet recommended, and still showed up to her court date looking faintly cyan. The judge wasn't amused. Community service, fines, and a permanent note in the HOA records that will follow her to whatever suburb she terrorizes next. So here's the question that keeps the neighborhood debating at every block party. Was the glowing blue dye going too far? Or was Karen's entitled power grab the real neighborhood crime? Who was truly in the wrong? The man protecting his grandfather's legacy? Or the woman who thought community meant whatever I want? Drop your verdict in the comments. Team Ryan or Team Karen? I'm reading every single one.